Hello and welcome to the podcast. My name is Will from Mr. H Cars, the YouTube channel.
And I'm Charlie Harvey.
If you didn't know already, I have a main YouTube channel called Mr. H Cars. You can hit the description down below, subscribe it, like it, do whatever you want to do. This one is my podcast channel with my co-host Charlie. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, again, we can be on YouTube and you can watch it there. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That's a long introduction.
Yes.
Title of today's video, is there a problem with car allocations?
Yeah, do we think there's anything wrong with the process of getting special cars?
Just a little bit of background. We both got GT4s. I bought mine used.
Yeah.
I paid a £2,000 premium, even though it had 2,500 miles on it, so it was used.
Was it 18 months old or something like that?
It was about 18 months old. It was hardly used.
Yeah.
2,500 miles. But I paid a £2,000 premium over it, so whoever sold it to me basically didn't lose any money. But you got your car brand new.
Oh, I got mine new, yeah.
At
so
list.
I was on the dealer list.
He's in the system.
And got my car at cost, yeah. At the point I bought mine, that's roughly a 20 grand saving on the used market.
Well, your car's PDK as well.
Yes,
So
at the time I bought it, that was like the one to have, wasn't it? They were gold dust, you couldn't get them.
PDK cars have
They're
a
only
20 grand premium on the used market.
At that point.
It's still pretty much the same, actually.
Oh, is it? Okay. I haven't been paying
There have
attention.
been a few PDK cars appearing for around about 95 grand. Pretty low spec stuff.
Yeah.
But if you do want one, it is possible. But then the manual cars are starting to creep into the 75s, high 70s. So it's around about the same. So,
But yeah, so we've got not different experience,
We've both-
different opinions.
Yes.
We've got different experiences on how to buy the same car.
so I think my question goes to you. Do you think there is an issue with it because you're obviously
I'm in the system. No, not. I don't, because it worked for me. My dad's had a long history of Porsche. I'd bought one before I got this GT4, so we'd got a really strong relationship at the dealership.
You were also willing to buy a 4-litre GTS as well.
Oh yeah, so I went in to go and buy a 4-litre GTS, and then they gave me. I cheekily asked for a Spider. They said no, GT4, but we covered that in the first podcast we did. So no, I don't think it's broken, because actually we've got 15 years of history that has been built up with that dealerships, and then I've been given access to this car, the GT4, which is not the hardest of the GT cars to get. It is the easiest of the GT cars to get, and we are on the list for another one, which is harder to get, and we're playing the game on that one, just waiting for that call. But I don't think so in that case, because yes, that has taken some time, and we have been rewarded at the end. Don't get me wrong, the initial reason that my dad kind of went into it was not ever to get a GT3. He's not really that.
He's always just been a Porsche lover.
Yeah, he just loves Porsches, and he's always kind of been after GTS S models. That's the kind of, because he's using it as a road car on the day. He's an old bloke. He doesn't want to. He's not into the race car vibes like we want. He does like that, but it's not the same. It's a really contentious topic on the internet, isn't it? Some people get really, really frustrated
The forums
about it.
are flooded with it.
Yeah, and some of it I definitely agree with. When new cars come out, so let's say the 992 GT3, when that car was launched, everybody and every man and their dog wants to go and get one. You can't get one, and then you find cars 6 months later for sale for huge premiums. That's really frustrating, particularly if you're a credible customer for that car anyway. If you've never bought a Porsche, you walk in and you say, "Hi, yeah, I'd like to have your most special car, please." They're going to go, like, I don't think you should ever be given that car, because like, you've not done anything. You clearly just want that car. If you won the lottery and walked in and said, "I'd have that," well, tough. Like, buy a used one. You've got enough money.
You want the special cars to go to the enthusiasts.
Yeah, and the customers that have,
This applies to Ferrari as well, because they do the same, right?
yeah, Ferrari. So Ferrari, yeah, because part of the problem with the Porsche and why it gets so heated up is because people think there's dodgy dealings going on, and I think there was a patch where it was definitely brown envelopes with wads of cash, it was watches, it was jobs, it was all sorts of stuff that was handed off to the dealer principals and sales managers and all sorts of stuff around the country that have access to, have the decision-making process to give the special cars out. Ferrari had that problem and nipped it in the bud because they just went, okay, well, we'll take all special cars in-house, i.e. you don't have, Ferrari Egham doesn't decide that you can have a pista. Ferrari Maranello in Italy decides whether you, as a customer, can have a pista, and then you just tell Ferrari Maranello where you'd like it delivered. And then Maranello or whoever just kind of control it. Porsche are still in this dealer control, so the dealer will get an allocation for 4 cars a year, say, but they don't know, they don't get told them in advance, but they'll get an allocation, and then they've got a list of customers that have registered their interest for that car, and then the dealer will go down the list. Now there's hierarchies on the list, obviously. So at Solihull there's a chap who bought a Carrera GT.
Wow. He
is top of the list, fair enough. So he gets, he's had a 4RS, he's got a GT3 and a GT3 Touring, he's got a Turbo GT, and he's got, other things.
But he
does keep them though.
He's also bought base 911 probably.
Yeah, he's had other cars,
911S, McCann.
Yeah, he's done the graft, he's put lots of money through the dealership, so when they come and they get one car and they go, who's going to have it? Well, guess who gets to have it? Like it's like
makes sense. The loyalty program.
Yeah, it's a loyalty program, and that's fine. There's definitely always going to be exceptions to that rules. People that get cars that you're like, how the hell did that happen, or whatever. But on the whole, I don't think it's broken. But I don't agree with when the cars get flipped, and when they get flipped to an outside dealership, i.e. you buy a car from Porsche Reading, you sell it off to, I don't know, Redline Specialist Cars or any other whatever who gets the first cars, right? That's bad. I think that's bad because that customer has been given that car in one way or another, whether that's because they've had a huge relationship or they've somehow know someone or whatever, one of those dodgy dealings has gone through. They've made 50 grand straight away. I would have bought that car, used it, loved it, kept it for a while, and then kind of gone back. That bit I don't like. I also find it frustrating when the cars go back to Porsche dealerships.
Yeah, the car is what, 2 months old?
2 months, 3 months old. Goes
10
back,
miles.
Yeah, goes back to the dealership and gets sold for huge premiums.
So that dealership sold that car once to the first owner.
Yeah.
And then they're getting the car back and selling it again at a premium, and they sell the same car twice.
They get to sell the same car twice, yeah, and make a load of money out of it. And I'm sure that's how they get around the can't give, get in trouble for money, is that, I would buy a GT3. Let's say I want a 3RS, right? I go and say I want a 3RS. They say you can't have one of those or whatever, and you go, okay, well I'll buy a 911 S, I'll buy a McCann GTS, I'll buy a Taycan whatever, and I'll buy a GT3 and I'll sell all of them back to you. I'll sell the GT3 back to you at list price, and I'll sell the other 3 for market value back to you. The dealer gets that GT3 back at list price and immediately makes 30 grand, right? So there's the cash in their hand, I guess. That must, I made that up as maybe that happens because some of the cars go back with like no miles on them. And I get, if it's part of your collection, if it's part of a collection and it goes back at 3 years old and it's done 2,000 miles, you can be mildly annoyed that it's not been driven, but it's not your car. It could have been part of a 12 car collection. It's been...
I don't really use this car much.
Yeah, I've used it for special occasions, but I've kept it for 3 years and then I've got rid of it. Fine, you're all good, sir. That's no problem. It's the ones that, that go back 3 weeks, 6 months. 6 months touch and go, I guess. Because, if you are really a true collector, you wouldn't. But if you're just really into your cars, you might flip it every 6 months because you fancy something different.
I think the reason why it's such an issue, it's always brought up with Porsche.
It's Porsche's problem, it feels like.
And I think because they make other low-end models that you... So take Ferrari. If you want a Pista,
Yeah.
you've got to buy a 488 first. I've got to drive around a Ferrari 488 for a little while before I can get a Pista. Cool, I'm driving
You're
around
still driving in a
Ferrari.
488, yeah.
With Porsche, you've got to
You might have
drive
to buy
around in a
Macans or
something that you completely don't even want,
yeah,
just to get
access to the special
to the
thing.
ones you do want.
Yeah.
Is it because it's more accessible as well?
I think that might play into it. You know, if you look at a GT3, that is an unbelievable car, and it's sort of
For the money.
and it's sort of 150 grand, I think. You know, give or take, put a few options on it, whatever, you end up at about 150k. That's a huge value for money car, and it shows that people value that car a lot higher than that, because actually the used market for those cars is more like 200k or 180 to 220, you know, depending on spec. So that car at 150 is too cheap. In Ferrari's world, let's go back. So more people can afford it at 150k, so get annoyed when they can't buy one. Fair enough, yeah, you know, whatever. With Ferrari, it doesn't matter if the allocation process is really difficult on their SF90 that's for £500,000 because how many people are actually
Trying to
buy a £500,000 car? And if you are trying to buy a £500,000 car, you've probably bought a ton of Ferraris and you're probably on the list anyway. So I think Porsche is like...
The entry levels.
The entry level's low, the barrier to entry is low, especially, I mean, God, GT4s, which people complain about a lot, you can have a base GT4 for like 80 grand, right? So, and that's, yes, it's a huge amount of money for a car and all that, and I appreciate that, but it's not mental in terms of special limited run things.
Because an M3 is like
M3 is 80k,
right?
yeah, and people go and buy those, you know.
So it's a lot easier to get into.
Yeah, I think...
And I've seen people get GT4s who have never bought a Porsche before in their life, and they've managed to get an allocation.
Yes. I think that's possibly another thing that winds everyone up. Is just the inconsistencies.
Yeah, and I've tried to take that route, and the dealers that I've spoken to at the time, a year ago, no, you can't have one. So, okay, fine, I accept that, I'll go and buy a used car.
Yeah.
Later down the line, I see that some people get cars that have never bought one have managed to get an allocation. So the inconsistency of that is...
Yeah, true. And that's because... That could potentially be because it is left to the dealers. If you took that into Ferrari's hands and you walked into... I don't know, you wouldn't, would you? But if you phoned up Ferrari and said, hi, can I have a Pista? They'd go, who the hell are you? No, you can't. So you'd never get someone who's not bought a Ferrari buying one. You know, I'm sure I even read about... Like celebrities have gone in and said, I want to buy that, and then Ferrari have turned around and go, I don't really care. No, you can't have one. Like it,
I like that.
You know, it doesn't matter. It's because you're a thing. So yeah, you get that level playing field. Whereas because I asked for you at my dealership, could you have one? You know, based off my relationship, you know, it's another car from you know, kind of our link. Can we have one? He just said, look, I'll be honest, no, because we don't know the guy. The car's not going to come back here for servicing. It's not going to be sold back to us. And you're not going to take finance out from us, or you know, that's another thing they take into the consideration is how the cars are purchased. And so no, basically, because they'll have a customer, say it was me on the flip side, that does live locally to that particular dealership, that will service it with them, that will probably sell it back to them at the end, and yeah, I finance my car through them. So cool, thanks very much.
So yeah, it's the inconsistency and the backhanders.
Yeah,
Which is the issue.
Yeah.
And could Porsche maybe... It is a business model of them, because you look at the other brands, Lamborghini, McLaren, you know, BMWs, although the CSLs and the...
Yeah, there are problems with BMW, I think.
But the argument could be, why not make more of those cars so everyone can have them? Now, for people who don't understand, if it's supply and demand, if the manufacturer produces less cars, more people want them, or it creates an image, an idea that more people want them, which then makes more people want them.
Yeah.
And then when they appear on the used market, they sell for more, or they don't lose much money, which then makes people want them even more because they realise they don't lose any money on them.
Yeah.
So it's a continued cycle then.
That's been since probably the Gen 199 911, so the Gen 1 991 GT3, that's the car that
That's when
I
it
can
started.
remember that came out and went for stupid money overs and is still, you know, I mean, I think those cars were under 100k new.
And they're still
about 100k, and it's like 7 or 8 years old, right? So if you look at a GT3 of that age and go, well, gosh, if I buy a GT3 now, of the current gen, I'm not going to lose any money over 7 years. This is
which makes more people want it. So
Yeah.
it creates a cycle.
Yeah.
It's the same with the Rolex world. Rolex do the same thing if you're into your watches.
Yeah.
So
Always produce one less than is demanded by the market.
exactly.
One.
Now there are other manufacturers that don't do that. If you go into McLaren and you say, I don't know, I'm not sure if a 765 LT, if maybe it's the same thing, but if you wanted to buy most McLarens, you could probably get given one quite easily.
A friend of mine bought a 600 LT, having bought one McLaren. So
Right.
he had a 570S.
And a 600 LT is
600
like a
LT is like a
GT3.
GT3, and he just went in and said, I'll have that, please. And they said, okay, no problem, sir.
So it's definitely easier.
Yeah. But on the flip side, that McLaren's not worth twice as much. So it's
is the
swings and
manufacturer
roundabouts, yeah.
taking the P a little bit by not producing all the cars that people want so they can go out there and they can enjoy it? I mean, they have every right to think about their business model and create a demand for their products so that they make money.
Yeah. I don't think there's I don't think there's personally much wrong with rejecting someone from having a GT3 or a GT4 or a whatever if you've got no history at that dealership and you've got no history in the manufacturer.
But if they produced more, do you think those chances, those people that just walk into the dealership and say, I want that car, do you think that would happen less?
Oh, because the
if they
values of the
churn
cars
down
were
more?
less?
Yeah. If these GT3s now lose money
If they
because there's so many
depreciate
in the
as
market.
normal, yeah. Yeah, probably, because you see...
You'd then get true passionate Porsche owners
Yeah.
buying those cars
cars.
because they're not doing it for the money, they're doing it because they enjoy the cars.
You might free up some allocations because you see that on the Amira that everybody and their dog ran to go and get an allocation. I mean, they're not limited, right? So it was just get an early car. And then as the press reviews came out and people discovered it wasn't going to be as good as they thought it would be, which is, it's still, I haven't driven one, I don't know. A lot of orders got cancelled because they probably realised they couldn't flip the car for some money to start with, which is, basically what the...
Well, they're selling for like $1,000, $2,000 more than what they were list.
Yeah, but that's not including
that's
dealer
just
margin,
because-
is it?
yeah.
So that car's sold.
And that's just because of scarcity, really, because there's none on the market.
So if you did the same thing and made everybody be able to buy a GT3, would you end up with residuals lower, which means that people don't come in? Yeah, probably. Yeah. Is that the right thing to do, though? No. Not as a buyer of one. No, because if Porsche, let's say tomorrow Porsche just opened the floodgates on the GT4, I'm going to be really I'm going to really
That's right, we can beep it out.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to be really, really irritated because I haven't bought my car because of its residuals, but I bought that car over a GTS because I knew that although it cost more, I could do the same amount of miles and it would still be worth a decent amount of cash. So it was like a safe jump in, and I'll get to use it, and I did daily. I've done loads of miles in it, so I haven't put it away and tried to retain its value, but that would deter me from buying another one, or I'd be irritated at Porsche would have gone and buy a GT3 if I knew the same thing was going to happen. No. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Because why spend all... Because on the road, a lot of these special cars aren't actually as good as the ordinary run-of-the-mill cars in your GTS video.
Because I'm thinking surely you would still want to buy a GT3 even if the floodgates were open, because that's an amazing car.
Yeah, it's still an amazing car. But a GTS is still an amazing car, right? It's better on the road than a GT3 would be, and I spend most of my time on the road, and it's going to save me 20 grand. So
a lot of justification of buying a GT car actually sometimes...
The finance packages can be quite appealing, or just your futures can be quite appealing on a special car,
so because it's special. Hits you into a GT car.
Yeah. Which would go away, which means that the manufacturer... Well, I tell you, you wouldn't have bought a GTS back when you bought your GT4 because you were convinced it was the GT4 was the only thing that would be good to drive, because the 4 litre wasn't readily available. So I completely got it. But if you now knew that a GT4 you could buy your used one, pay a premium, or you could go and get a GTS for less money, and it's a better car, and they're both going to depreciate at the same rate. Yeah, why would you buy the GT4? For what? I mean, you've been on track in yours, so it's different. But for me,
styling and things aside,
yeah. You know, the cars are not. They are special, but also part of the specialty of stuff is that you don't see them everywhere.
It's the limitedness of them as well.
When you see an M2 is a great car, like absolutely unreal car. But there was a period of time where you couldn't go down a road without seeing one. So when I was driving down the road very early on with that Long Beach Blue M2, people were like, "What the hell's that? Oh, look at that!" Or whatever. And yeah, it was a Larry colour, so it attracts attention. Whatever. Now, if you drove down the same road in that, they'd be like, "Oh, cool, it's an M2." But it's not the same as, "Oh my God, what's that?" So, and that isn't even limited. That was just because we had an early car. If you had a GT4 now, it's not. When I got mine, they were quite rare. They are more common now than they were.
Go to a car meet. There's probably 3 of them at every car meet.
Yeah. They're not common, but they're more common than they were. You are getting to that with a GT3. If you open the floodgates, would it be as exciting to own one? Because part of the thing is, I'm in a...
People want that feel of exclusivity. They want to feel...
it's just a natural thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't want the same... I mean, some people do want the same thing as everyone else, whatever. But I like to have something that's different to other people.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have bought a mirror, though. Just so that I don't care how different that is. I'm still not buying one of those.
I was interested, but deep down I always wanted a GT4.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, when you're in the market for thing, I understand where you're going, but we're not going to start a mirror bashing on this.
Yeah,
because I can go in on that one.
We can save that for another podcast. There you go. There's our question.
Yeah, is your mirror crap? Yes.
All right. Let us know your thoughts.
Yes. What do you think about the allocation process? Do you think it's fair? And how would you fix it? Because there's a lot of commentary around there going, "Oh, it's dreadful. This is the worst thing ever. It's not fair." Okay.
Because if Porsche opened up their floodgates, they would lose revenue. They would lose interest. They probably wouldn't be able to produce as much GT cars anymore. Like things like those.
Yeah.
It may just become a Volkswagen or a Ford. I don't know.
Yeah, just become mass production. Yeah.
Exactly.
So let us know how you'd fix it, if you would fix it.
And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating, give us a follow.
Yeah, leave your answers in the ratings as well, because we'll read those and we'll pick up in it.
Awesome.
That'll be good. Right, good.
Thank you very much for watching.
Cheers.